The wealthy have a code of silence, and part of that code is knowing which brands to abandon before everyone else does. For 9 specific luxury brands, that time is now. While the middle class is still lining up for logos that have lost their power, the elite have quietly exited, leaving a trail of declining brand value and desperate discounts in their wake. You were told these bags and watches were investments, but their mystique has vanished. In this video, we break the code and name the brands. Stick around, because the story of how these icons fell from grace is a masterclass in modern luxury. The final brand on this list will shock you with how effectively it has hidden its decline. Remember 2012. That was the height of Michael Kors mania. Every influencer, celebrity, and aspiring professional woman carried that distinctive MK logo bag. The brand had positioned itself as the gateway to luxury, affordable enough for the middle class, but still carrying the weight of designer prestige. What happened next is a textbook case of brand dilution. Michael Kors embarked on an aggressive expansion strategy that would ultimately become its undoing. The company opened hundreds of outlet stores across America and flooded department stores with its products. Suddenly, that distinctive MK logo was not so distinctive anymore. The wealthy noticed this shift immediately. When exclusivity vanishes, so does prestige. The brand that was once a status symbol became something else entirely, a mass-market staple. And mass market is precisely what the wealthy avoid. This overexposure led to the inevitable discount spiral. Today, you will rarely find Michael Kors products selling at full price. The perpetual sales and special offers have trained consumers to never pay retail, creating a vicious cycle that has permanently damaged the brand's positioning. Data tells the story clearly. Between 2018 and 2022, Michael Kors' parent company Capri Holdings saw its stock price drop by over 60% before its recent acquisition by Tapestry. This was not just market fluctuation, it was a fundamental recalibration of what consumers believe the brand is worth. The wealthy have not just abandoned Michael Kors, they have erased it from their consciousness entirely. It now exists in a retail purgatory, too expensive for budget shoppers, but lacking the cachet to justify its price point for the truly affluent. Coach's story is perhaps even more telling. Founded in 1941, this was once the quintessential American leather goods company, known for craftsmanship that could rival European luxury houses. Vintage Coach bags from the 1970s and the 1980s are still sought after for their quality and timeless design. But somewhere along the way, Coach lost sight of what made it special. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, the brand pivoted hard toward logo-heavy designs, chasing the monogram trend pioneered by Louis Vuitton and others. The signature C pattern became ubiquitous, appearing on everything from handbags to sneakers to umbrellas. This identity crisis continued as the brand lurched from strategy to strategy. When logo fatigue set in around 2015, Coach attempted to reposition itself as New York cool, bringing in Stuart Vevers as creative director to inject edge into the brand. Then came another pivot toward quiet luxury in recent years, trying to recapture its heritage credentials. The result? A brand that feels perpetually confused about its own identity. The wealthy, who prize consistency and heritage in their luxury purchases, have no patience for this kind of strategic whiplash. They've moved on to brands with clearer visions and more stable identities. The numbers reflect this exodus. Coach's parent company Tapestry has been forced to rely heavily on discounting to move inventory, with Coach products regularly available at 30 to 50% below retail through outlet stores and online sales. When a luxury brand becomes synonymous with discounting, its prestige evaporates. What's particularly tragic about Coach's decline is that the brand actually produces high-quality products. The craftsmanship is still there, but the prestige is gone. And in luxury, perception is reality. If you want to understand the volatile nature of hype-driven luxury, look no further than Gucci. Under Tom Ford in the 1990s, Gucci was the epitome of provocative glamour. After a fallow period in the 2000s, Alessandro Michele's appointment in 2015 catapulted the brand back to the forefront of fashion with his maximalist, eclectic aesthetic. For several years, Gucci was untouchable. The double G belt became the most coveted accessory in fashion. The floral prints, the embroidered sneakers, the statement loafers, Gucci wasn't just a brand, it was a cultural movement. Revenues soared, with Gucci accounting for the majority of parent company Kering's profits. But here's the thing about trends: they inevitably fade. By 2019, the early adopters, the wealthy tastemakers who drive luxury consumption, had already begun moving on. The maximalist aesthetic that had felt so fresh in 2015 was now everywhere, copied by fast fashion and mid-range brands alike. The pandemic accelerated this decline. While other luxury brands bounced back strongly in 2021 and 2022, Gucci struggled. In the fourth quarter of 2022, while LVMH reported record profits, Gucci's sales fell by 14%. The wealthy had moved on to other brands, Bottega Veneta, the Loewe, that offered more subtlety and less obvious branding. Michel's departure in November 2022 signaled the official end of an era. His replacement, Sabato De Sarno, faces the unenviable task of redefining Gucci for a post-hype luxury landscape. The lesson here is profound: when a luxury brand becomes too accessible, too recognizable, too much of a cultural shorthand, the elite begin their exodus. They're not paying premium prices to look like everyone else. They're paying for distinction, for insider knowledge, for the subtle codes that separate those who know from those who follow. Gucci fell into the trap that has claimed many luxury brands before it, confusing widespread popularity with lasting prestige. The two are not the same. In fact, they're often mutually exclusive. Perhaps no American brand has built a more compelling mythology than Ralph Lauren. For decades, Ralph Lauren did not just sell clothes, it sold an aspiration, the dream of American aristocracy, of Gatsby-esque wealth, of East Coast prep schools and Hampton beach houses. That powerful storytelling made Ralph Lauren an icon, with the simple polo player logo becoming a global symbol of a certain kind of American success. At its peak in the 1990s and the early 2000s, Ralph Lauren was the uniform of the established upper middle class and a status symbol for those aspiring to join their ranks. But the brand made a critical error. It diluted its narrative through endless expansion. What began as a coherent vision fractured into countless sublabels: Polo, RRL, Purple Label, Blue Label, Black Label, Lauren Ralph Lauren, Chaps, each targeting different price points and demographics. The result was confusion in the marketplace, an erosion of the brand's aspirational quality. Simultaneously, Ralph Lauren became increasingly reliant on outlet stores and department store distribution. By 2020, over 40% of Ralph Lauren's North American sales came from outlets, according to market analysts. For the wealthy, this level of accessibility signals a brand in decline. The brand that once defined American luxury found itself trapped in retail's dangerous middle ground, too expensive for value shoppers but too ubiquitous for luxury consumers. The wealthy, ever sensitive to these subtle shifts in brand positioning, began looking elsewhere for their casual luxury staples. Ralph Lauren's stock performance tells the story. While the company has shown some recovery recently, its long-term performance has lagged behind both the S&P 500 and luxury conglomerates like LVMH. Between 2013 and 2023, while LVMH stock increased by over 500%, Ralph Lauren saw much more modest growth. The brand is not dead, far from it. It still generates billions in revenue. But its position has fundamentally changed. Ralph Lauren has transitioned from a true luxury player to a premium mass-market brand, and the wealthy have adjusted their purchasing habits accordingly. Few luxury brands have experienced as dramatic a repositioning as Burberry. In the early 2000s, the British heritage brand faced a crisis when its distinctive check pattern became associated with chav culture in the UK, essentially becoming the uniform of working-class youth rather than the aristocracy. Under the leadership of Angela Ahrendts and Christopher Bailey, Burberry executed what seemed like a miraculous turnaround. They reclaimed the check, embraced digital innovation, and repositioned the brand as a global luxury player rather than merely a British heritage label. For a time, it worked brilliantly. Burberry trench coats and scarves regained their status as luxury staples. The brand's London Fashion Week shows became must-see events, and its digital campaigns set new standards for the industry. But beneath this apparent success, fundamental problems were brewing. The brand never quite achieved the true luxury status of its French and Italian competitors. Despite premium pricing, Burberry remained more accessible than houses like Hermès or Chanel, placing it in a precarious middle ground. More recently, a series of creative missteps and frequent leadership changes have further eroded confidence in the brand. Designer Riccardo Tisci's tenure from 2018 to 2022 failed to resonate with consumers, and his replacement, Daniel Lee, faces significant challenges in redefining Burberry's identity once again. The wealthy, who prize stability and heritage in their luxury purchases, have grown wary of Burberry's constant reinvention. Why invest in a brand that seems perpetually unsure of itself when there are more confident alternatives available? Sales figures reflect this uncertainty. While Burberry reported some recovery in 2023, its growth has consistently lagged behind luxury leaders like LVMH and Hermès. The gap between Burberry and the top-tier luxury brands continues to widen. What was once the definitive British luxury brand now finds itself in a no-man's land, too expensive for premium consumers, but lacking the exclusivity and consistency the truly wealthy demand. Giorgio Armani built an empire by defining power dressing in the 1980s and the 1990s. His minimalist suits and clean aesthetic became synonymous with sophisticated European luxury. At its height, the Armani name was shorthand for understated elegance. But the brand's expansive diffusion line strategy has become its Achilles heel. Today, the Armani name adorns items that cost $10,000 and socks that cost $30. It is spread across multiple lines: Giorgio Armani, Emporio Armani, Armani Exchange, Armani Jeans, Armani Casa, and more. This dilution has created confusion among consumers about what the Armani name actually signifies. When the same brand logo appears on both high luxury items and mall-level products, the prestige inevitably flows downward. The wealthy, who once embraced Armani as a symbol of refined taste, have largely moved on to more focused luxury houses. Brands like Loro Piana, Brunello Cucinelli, and The Row now occupy the space for understated luxury that Armani once dominated. Financially, this strategy has yielded mixed results. While Armani remains profitable, its growth has stagnated compared to more focused luxury players. The privately held company does not release detailed financial information, but industry analysts estimate that its main growth now comes from accessories, fragrances, and hospitality, not from its core fashion business. For the wealthy, Armani has become a brand of the past, respectable but no longer relevant to current luxury conversations. It is a cautionary tale of how even a legendary designer name can lose its luster when stretched across too many price points and product categories. Fendi's trajectory illustrates another pitfall in luxury brand management, becoming too closely associated with a specific trend or product. In Fendi's case, it was the baguette bag and the double F Zucca pattern that defined the brand in the early 2000s. When Carrie Bradshaw declared, "This isn't a bag, it's a Fendi" on Sex and the City, the baguette became an instant must-have. The brand leaned heavily into that success, plastering its logo across everything from handbags to sunglasses to fur coats. For a time, this strategy worked brilliantly. Fendi became one of the most recognizable luxury brands globally, but as logo fatigue set in during the middle of the 2010s, Fendi struggled to evolve beyond its monogram identity, and that logo fatigue hurt the brand's momentum. While LVMH stablemates like Dior and Louis Vuitton successfully navigated the shift away from obvious logos, Fendi remained too closely associated with its FF pattern. When the wealthy began to favor more subtle branding, Fendi's obvious logos suddenly seemed passé. Recent attempts to reposition the brand under creative director Kim Jones have yielded mixed results. While Jones has brought fresh energy to the house, Fendi still lacks the clear identity that characterizes today's most successful luxury houses. The wealthy, always sensitive to shifting aesthetic codes, have largely moved their spending to brands that better reflect current luxury values, with craftsmanship over logos, subtlety over ostentation, and timelessness over trend chasing. Fendi isn't failing financially. LVMH does not tolerate failure. But its cultural cachet among the truly wealthy has diminished significantly. It has become what luxury brands fear most, a name from the past rather than a force shaping the present. This might be controversial, but the evidence is clear. Among the truly wealthy, Rolex has lost its position as the ultimate status watch. While the brand still enjoys enormous commercial success and waiting lists for certain models, the upper echelons of wealth have largely moved on. What happened? In simple terms, overexposure. Rolex became too successful, too recognizable, too much of a shorthand for entry-level luxury. When everyone from mid-level managers to social media influencers sports a Submariner or Datejust, the watch loses its ability to signal true exclusivity. The wealthy have not abandoned fine watchmaking, far from it. They have simply migrated to brands that offer more exclusivity and connoisseurship. Independent watchmakers like F.P. Journe and Philippe Dufour, ultra-high-end brands like Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet, or under-the-radar choices like A. Lange and Saône. This shift is reflected in auction results and secondary market prices. While certain Rolex models still command premiums, the most significant growth in the high-end watch market has come from these more exclusive alternatives. Rolex marketing has not helped its cause among the elite. The brand's sponsorship of mass-market sporting events and ubiquitous advertising has reinforced its accessibility rather than its exclusivity. Compare this to Patek Philippe's restrained marketing focusing on heritage and generational value, and the positioning difference becomes clear. Do not misunderstand, Rolex makes excellent watches with genuine horological merit. But in the status game played by the wealthy, Rolex has become a victim of its own success. It is now the watch for those who want others to know they have made it, not for those who have nothing left to prove. And now we come to perhaps the most surprising entry on our list, Prada. At first glance, Prada seems to be thriving. Its runway shows generate buzz, its nylon bags have made a comeback with younger consumers, and celebrities still wear its designs on red carpets. But look closer, and the cracks become apparent. Prada has been losing ground to competitors in key luxury markets, particularly China, where brands like Chanel and Hermes have captured more of the high-end spending. The problem lies in Prada's inconsistent brand message. Is it an intellectual fashion house for the avant-garde, a purveyor of practical luxury goods, a trendy label for fashion-forward millennials? At various times, Prada has tried to be all these things, creating confusion in the marketplace. This lack of clarity has particularly alienated the wealthy, who prize coherence and consistency in their luxury purchases. When a brand constantly shifts its positioning, it becomes difficult to justify premium prices. Financially, Prada has shown improvement recently, but its performance still lags behind luxury leaders. Between 2015 and 2020, while LVMH and Hermes saw their stock prices double or triple, Prada experienced much more modest growth. What makes Prada's decline particularly insidious is how effectively the brand has maintained the appearance of prestige while losing actual status among the wealthy. The brand still commands high prices and maintains limited distribution, creating the illusion of exclusivity. But the wealthy aren't fooled. They've quietly shifted their spending to brands with more consistent identities and clearer value propositions. Prada hasn't been abandoned entirely. It still produces designs that capture attention, but it has been demoted from the top tier of luxury brands that the wealthy consistently patronize. In many ways, this makes Prada the most interesting case study of all, a brand that appears healthy on the surface but has experienced a subtle yet significant status decline among those who truly drive luxury consumption. The luxury landscape is shifting beneath our feet. These 9 brands, once untouchable icons of status and style, have all committed the cardinal sin of luxury. They have lost their mystique. Whether through overexposure, identity confusion, or trend dependency, each has fallen from the favor of those who define true luxury. The wealthy are not just buying products, they are buying into carefully crafted narratives of exclusivity, heritage, and insider knowledge. When those narratives falter, no logo, no matter how recognizable, can maintain its power. The question is not just which brands have fallen, but which ones are next. The codes of wealth are always evolving, always one step ahead of mainstream recognition. Are you paying attention to the signals or still chasing yesterday's status symbols? Comment below with the brand you think is next to fall from grace, or defend one I have named if you believe I am wrong. Subscribe now, because the conversation about the shifting landscape of luxury is just beginning, and you will not want to miss what comes next.